October 26, 2016, Simpsonville, South Carolina. In the chilling darkness of an abandoned house, two teenagers descended into the basement, their flashlights trembling in their hands. They weren't prepared for what they were about to see. In the middle of the damp, moldy room sat a rectangular concrete box, like a makeshift grave. Inside, the body of Katie Blauvelt, 22 years old, had been stuffed in a cruel, contorted position, her body folded like a discarded object. A broken knife blade was still lodged in her throat, dried blood clinging to her thin sweater. "She's ice cold." One of the teens screamed into the phone with 911, his voice breaking in panic. "Katie's dead." Katie Blauvelt, a young woman with a radiant smile and a loving heart, had vanished 2 days earlier. Who did this to her? And why? That question haunted the small town of Simpsonville, a place where murder seemed like something that only happened in movies. Katie Blauvelt wasn't an ordinary girl. Standing at just 5 feet 1 inch, she had a vibrant energy that everyone around her could feel. With her light brown hair and sparkling eyes, Katie always brought warmth to those she met. She was a free spirit, her mother, Patty Piver, a former police officer, recalled, her voice trembling. She made friends so easily. Everyone loved her. Katie had a special love for animals. She worked at PetSmart, where she spent hours caring for dogs and cats. Katie could sit for hours playing with a puppy, her best friend, Ally Somerville, shared. She always said animals were the most honest friends. Katie dreamed of one day opening an animal rescue shelter, a place where she could care for abandoned dogs and cats. But that dream was cut short by a man, John Blauvelt. John Blauvelt, 26, was a military recruiter for the U.S. Army in Simpsonville. Tall, with a deep voice and a confident demeanor, he wore his uniform adorned with ribbons of honor, making him the ideal image of a soldier: strong, dependable, and responsible. He had served in Iraq, and his war stories captivated many, especially the local teens who looked up to him. "He seemed like he had it all together," Ally Somerville recalled, "like a hero you'd see in a movie." Katie met John in 2014 while working at a sandwich shop near his recruiting office. One day he walked in and their eyes met. Katie, then 20, was drawn to his confidence. They quickly started dating, and within months, their romance blossomed. But Katie's family wasn't entirely supportive. "I wasn't sure about John," Patty said, her voice tinged with unease. "He never really talked to us. I felt like he didn't care about our family." In the summer of 2015, John convinced Katie to enlist in the Army. She was excited about the idea, but after just 2 months of training, she was forced to leave due to a health issue with her spine. Her military dream shattered. Meanwhile, John continued his career, often boasting that he had found his true calling in the Army. His career meant everything to him, a friend of John revealed. He lived for the military. Not long after Katie left the Army, she and John shocked everyone by announcing they had gotten married at the courthouse. "I was stunned," Patty recalled. Katie just said, "Mom, John and I got married. I didn't know how to react." First they were happy. Katie dreamed of a small family, with children and dogs running around the yard. But that dream quickly faded. After their honeymoon, everything changed. John turned their house in Fountain Inn, just outside Simpsonville, into a party house for local teens. People like Hannah Thompson, 17, and Ally Somerville were constant visitors, bringing alcohol, drugs, and parties that lasted until dawn. "We smoked weed all day," Ally admitted, her voice heavy with regret. Sometimes there was alcohol, even heavier drugs. John encouraged it all. Katie couldn't take it. She wanted a family, not a house filled with smoke and noise. She begged John to stop, but he didn't care. The tension escalated, and after less than 3 months of marriage, Katie decided to leave. What she didn't expect was that as soon as she moved out, Hannah Thompson, a 17-year-old girl infatuated with John, moved in with him. Hannah hated Katie, Ally revealed. She wanted John all to herself, and Katie was in the way. The dynamic in the house grew darker with each passing day. Katie's attempts to reason with John were met with cold indifference, and she began to see a side of him she hadn't noticed before. "He wasn't the man I thought I married," Katie confided in Ally shortly before she moved out. "He's obsessed with control, with being the center of attention." John, meanwhile, seemed to revel in the chaos he created, often boasting to the teens about his military exploits while passing around joints and bottles of cheap liquor. Hannah's presence only made things worse. She idolized John, hanging on his every word, and her disdain for Katie was palpable. She'd make snide comments about Katie whenever she wasn't around, Ally recalled. She'd say things like, "Katie doesn't deserve him," or "she's holding him back." Hannah's jealousy was a ticking time bomb, and Katie unknowingly was in its crosshairs. Katie's decision to leave wasn't just about the parties, it was about survival. She moved back in with her mother, hoping to rebuild her life, but she couldn't fully escape John's shadow. She still had to return to the house occasionally to pick up her belongings, including her beloved dog, Jupiter. "I was terrified every time she went back there," Patty said, her voice cracking. "I had this gut feeling that something horrible was going to happen." John's resentment toward Katie grew after she left. He blamed her for the domestic violence charge that had derailed his career, a charge that stemmed from a chilling incident in February 2016. According to police reports, John had pulled a gun on Katie during an argument, pressing the barrel against her temple and threatening to kill her and her entire family. "He said he'd make sure none of us lived to tell the story," Patty recounted, her hands trembling as she spoke. The incident led to a restraining order, but it did little to ease Katie's fears or her family's. On October 24, 2016, Katie Blauvelt was last seen at PetSmart, where she worked. She left her shift at 8 p.m., but after that, no one could reach her. Her phone went dead, her messages unanswered. Patty, Katie's mother, felt a dark premonition. "I knew something was wrong," she said, her voice shaking. "I called the police right away and told them I suspected John." 2 days later, on the night of October 26th, Katie's body was found in an abandoned house, a place where teens often gathered to party. Police discovered her stuffed into a concrete box in the basement, her body folded in a brutal, dehumanizing way. A broken knife blade was still lodged in her throat, dried blood clinging to her thin sweater. "It was like a scene from a horror movie," investigator Cheryl Schofield recalled. "We believe she was killed on the gravel driveway, then dragged into the house through the basement window." The crime scene told a story of rage and desperation. Investigators found scuff marks on the gravel outside, suggesting a struggle, and a trail of blood led from the driveway to the basement window. The concrete box where Katie's body was found was surrounded by empty beer cans and cigarette butts, remnants of countless parties that had taken place there over the years. "It was as if she was discarded like trash," Schofield said, her voice heavy with disgust. "Whoever did this wanted to erase her existence." Patty collapsed when she heard the news. "I felt empty," she said, tears streaming down her face. "She didn't deserve to be killed like that." Jennifer, Katie's stepsister, could only pray and cry. "I felt helpless," she said. "I just wanted to know who did this to my sister." From the start, all suspicion pointed to John Blauvelt. When police arrived to notify him of Katie's death, John didn't react like a grieving husband. He didn't ask, "Where did you find her?" or "What happened?" Instead, he asked one question: "Am I being charged?" Investigator Keith Moorcraft noticed the red flag. "He wasn't shocked, he wasn't grieving," Moorcraft said. "I felt like he knew exactly what had happened. John had threatened Katie before. In February 2016, he was charged with domestic violence after pointing a gun at her head and threatening to kill her and her family. The incident led the Army to suspend his recruiting duties, and John blamed Katie for ruining his career. He said Katie destroyed his life, Ally Somerville revealed. He said multiple times that he wanted to kill her. But the police didn't have enough evidence to arrest John immediately. They needed more than a gut feeling, they needed hard proof. They collected DNA samples from the crime scene, analyzed John's phone records, and interviewed everyone who had been in contact with Katie in her final days. "We knew he was our guy," Schofield said, "but we had to build a case that would hold up in court." John's behavior during the investigation only deepened their suspicions. In his initial interview, he appeared arrogant, almost dismissive, as if the police were wasting his time. "He acted like he was smarter than us," Moorcraft recalled, "like he was going to get away with it." John claimed he hadn't seen Katie in months, that their marriage had been a series of endless arguments over normal stuff. But his lack of emotion was telling. He didn't even pretend to care that she was gone, Schofield noted. It was chilling. After his first interview, John vanished. He fled with Hannah Thompson, the 17-year-old girl infatuated with him. If he was willing to kill his own wife, who knows what danger Hannah might be in? Moorcraft worried. The police issued a nationwide alert, but John's military training made him a ghost. He knew how to disappear, how to cover his tracks, and how to survive off the grid. John Blauvelt, with survival and combat skills honed in the military, became a fugitive who was hard to catch. He and Hannah moved through Texas, New Mexico, and eventually to Oregon, leaving few traces. The Simpsonville police called in the United States Marshals, experts in hunting fugitives, to track him down. John was a unique fugitive, a marshal said. He was trained to evade, to survive, and to kill. The marshals followed every lead, no matter how small. They tracked John's red GMC Yukon through license plate readers, spotting it in Texas and New Mexico, but by the time they arrived, he was always gone. It was a game of seconds, one marshal explained. He was always one step ahead. They interviewed Hannah's friends and family, hoping for a clue, but no one seemed to know where she and John had gone. Meanwhile, Hannah suddenly contacted her family from Eugene, Oregon, in November 2016. She said John had abandoned her and she wanted to come home. When she returned to Simpsonville, Hannah claimed she didn't know where John was, but the police didn't buy it. She knew more than she was saying, Cheryl Schofield noted. Under pressure, Hannah slowly revealed a horrifying truth. John had confessed to her that he killed Katie. He said he stabbed her in the neck, Hannah recounted, her voice trembling. He said he did it for me. Investigators pressed Hannah for more details, but she was evasive at first. She admitted to helping John hide Katie's car after the murder, but she insisted she didn't know he planned to kill her. He told me if I lied to the police, he'd keep me safe, Hannah said, her eyes downcast. The police suspected Hannah was holding back, but they couldn't charge her yet. They needed her cooperation to find John. But what shocked the police even more was in 2022, 6 years after the murder, when Hannah revealed a secret. She had been in contact with John the entire time, even after she returned home. We talked every day on Facebook, Snapchat, Hannah admitted. I still loved him, even knowing what he did. Hannah said she had matured and realized her mistake. She provided a crucial lead. John was living with another woman in Medford, Oregon. Based on this tip, the United States Marshals began their surveillance. They tracked down a man with a distinctive pirate tattoo, a key identifier of John. On July 20, 2022, John Blauvelt was arrested after 6 years on the run. He gave a fake name, Ben Klein, but his fingerprints betrayed his true identity. When apprehended, John didn't resist. He knew it was over, a marshal said. In September 2024, John Blauvelt went on trial for murder. The evidence against him was undeniable. The broken knife blade in Katie's throat, John's journal where he wrote, "I did it," and Hannah's testimony. Hannah, who was also charged with obstruction of justice and accessory after the fact, testified against John without any plea deal. "I did this because it was the right thing," she said. The trial was an emotional roller coaster for Katie's family. Patty sat in the courtroom every day, clutching a photo of Katie as a child, her eyes red from crying. "I needed to be there for her," she said. "I needed to see justice done." Jennifer, Katie's stepsister, struggled to look at John without feeling a surge of rage. "He took everything from us," she said, her voice breaking. "He didn't just kill Katie, he killed a part of all of us." Prosecutors presented a chilling case. They showed the jury an X-ray of Katie's neck, the broken knife blade clearly visible, a stark reminder of the brutality of her death. They read excerpts from John's journal, where he not only admitted to the murder, but also expressed his hatred for Katie, blaming her for the downfall of his military career. "She flipped my life upside down," he wrote in one entry, the words dripping with venom. "I had to make her pay." Hannah's testimony was the turning point. She recounted how John had confessed to her while they were on the run, describing in detail how he had stabbed Katie and covered up the crime. He said he threw her phone into a puddle to destroy it. Hannah testified, her voice barely above a whisper. He said he covered her blood with dirt so no one would find it. The courtroom fell silent as she spoke, the weight of her words hanging in the air. John's defense team tried to discredit Hannah, pointing out that her story had changed over the years and that there was no DNA evidence directly linking John to the crime scene. They argued that his journal was a work of fiction, filled with poems and stories, not a confession. But the jury wasn't convinced. After a 4-day trial, they took just 5 hours to deliver their verdict. John Blauvelt was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Patty Piver broke down in tears in the courtroom, her sobs echoing through the room. "I just wish she could see this day," she said, her voice choked with emotion. But Katie's family couldn't forgive Hannah. "She hid John for years," Jennifer said, her voice filled with bitterness. "I can't understand why she did that." Katie Blauvelt, the girl who loved animals and dreamed of opening a rescue shelter, was gone forever. But her story left a lingering question. Was Hannah Thompson truly a victim of blind love, or did she bear some responsibility for Katie's death? And John Blauvelt, once a military hero, became a murderer driven by resentment. The journey for justice for Katie had ended, but the pain of her family would never fade. In the months following the trial, Simpsonville struggled to heal. The abandoned house where Katie's body was found became a grim reminder of the town's darkest chapter, a place that locals now avoided. Some residents pushed for the house to be demolished, hoping to erase the memory of the tragedy, but others felt it should stand as a monument to Katie, a warning of what can happen when resentment festers unchecked. Patty found solace in small things, like visiting Katie's favorite park, where she used to take her dog Jupiter for walks. "I feel her here," Patty said, her voice soft as she watched a group of children play nearby. "She loved life so much. I just wish I could have protected her." Jennifer, meanwhile, channeled her grief into advocacy, speaking at local schools about the dangers of domestic violence. "If I can save just one person from going through what Katie did, it'll be worth it," she said. Hannah Thompson's fate remained uncertain. Facing charges of obstruction of justice and accessory after the fact, she pleaded not guilty and was released on bail. Her trial was set for the following year, but public opinion in Simpsonville was divided. Some saw her as a naive teenager manipulated by an older man, while others believed she was complicit in Katie's death, her years of silence a betrayal of justice. "I don't know if I'll ever forgive her," Jennifer admitted, "but I hope she lives with the weight of what she did for the rest of her life." For the investigators who worked the case, the resolution brought a bittersweet sense of closure. Cheryl Schofield, who had retired before John's arrest, flew back to Simpsonville to attend the trial. "It was the one case that haunted me," she said, her voice heavy with emotion. "Seeing him in handcuffs was a weight off my shoulders, but it'll never bring Katie back." Keith Moorcraft, who had spent years tracking John, felt a mix of relief and sorrow. "We got him," he said, "but the cost was too high. Katie should still be here." The case also sparked a broader conversation in Simpsonville about the warning signs of domestic violence. Many in the community reflected on John's behavior, the way he had charmed everyone with his military persona while hiding a darker side. "We all thought he was a hero," Ally Somerville said, her voice tinged with regret. "But he was a monster. I wish I had seen it sooner." Katie's memory lived on in the hearts of those who loved her. At PetSmart, her co-workers created a small memorial in her honor, a plaque with her name and a photo of her smiling with a puppy in her arms. "She was the best of us," one co-worker said, tears in her eyes. "She didn't deserve what happened to her." As the years passed, Patty found herself returning to the question that had haunted her since Katie's death. Could she have done more to save her daughter? "I keep replaying every moment," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "If I had pushed harder, if I had gotten her away from him sooner, maybe she'd still be here." It was a question with no answer, a wound that would never fully heal. The mystery under the moonlight in Simpsonville had been solved, but its echoes lingered, a reminder of the fragility of life and the devastating consequences of unchecked rage. For Katie's family, the fight for justice was over, but the fight to live with their loss had only just begun.